So in the last segment, I really talked about the key business challenge across the 5 phases of the life cycle. Now in this segment, I'm going to cover the second dimension and the role and challenges of leadership. Okay? So we'll start with just talking a little bit about leadership. The leadership challenge is very different for a large established company like HP than it is for a greenfield startup. You know, often in a large company, it's the general manager or the P&L owner of the existing business at the end of the life cycle is often more skilled as an execution manager. They're really not an innovator, okay? They're able to see the big picture of the business, but also they appreciate and track the many details of the business, okay? They're almost always not the right leader for finding that new breakthrough technology or that new product or embarking on a new S-curve, okay? If they recognize this limitation themselves, then they can set up the organization to be more of an ambidextrous organization, right? Where they can actually run the existing business, but also set up a new product group or a division, you know, under separate leadership, which they can fund, protect, resource, and allow them the freedom to break all the rules and find that next technology breakthrough. But it's rare that that same manager who got them through the tornado onto Main Street is going to be able to do that themselves. Now, a startup company, on the other hand, is often led by entrepreneurial technologists, okay? They're innovators to start with. They have a vision for what's possible, a passion in their belly for creating disruptions in the marketplace, and they basically have the right mindset and the skill set for that early market pre-chasm phase, okay? So you got to keep in mind that there's 2 different kinds of environments going on here. So let me talk about the early market leaders and what's important for them at this point in time. So in the early market, first and foremost, they must create an environment that's conducive to new business creation, that's going to attract the right talent needed to bring this product or this technology to the marketplace. Okay, the best early market leaders are clearly entrepreneurs. They're motivated to take risks. They often trust their instincts. They're flexible. They can adjust quickly, just depending on the circumstances that they're in. Okay, they're much more subjective in their decision making and are also able to live with a high degree of uncertainty in planning, forecasting, and figuring out how to get there. Their focus is almost exclusively on developing the technology or the product so that they can get an early prototype or some kind of proof point, you know, so that they can continue to get the investor support for their vision. I mean, clearly, you know, VCs play a critical role, or angel investors that are going to fund this. And so there has to be that interest, that excitement that's going on to keep that product alive so that it doesn't die. It's a little bit different when you're inside of a large company where investments often coming from senior management. You have different challenges because it's competing with other potential products that they could invest in. So those two environments are very different. But as that leader now crosses the chasm and moves into the bowling alley, they tend to spend the majority of their time with customers, promoting their technology and their product, and often using demos or other types of events to grow support and excitement for their product. Their eye is always on the prize, but they remain flexible in how they attain it. Okay, these leaders can often pay little attention to the internal organization or processes. You know, they don't really worry about those things. They do make demands of their people to generate the prototypes and the proof points that will continue to encourage customers and investors to support their product and technology into the marketplace. That's their major focus, okay? And then as the market segments grow and they start to take hold and the early signs of the tornado phase begin to emerge, it's not unusual for a change of leadership here, okay? This is always a dilemma, particularly for founders, people who have done a startup and they're there and they want to hold on to that top leadership role. But in most cases, it becomes inevitable that a shift in skill set is going to be required. And many of those early adopter leaders become either chief technology officers or some place where they hold the technology vision as a more mature operational leader steps in to change and build the culture of the organization that the tornado phase really requires. Okay? So as the market share and volume grows, it becomes essential that this entrepreneurial leadership shifts its focus to the operations, all the details, the complexity required to survive that tornado phase. Okay, again, this is where the seatbelts have to come on because a lot of things is going on. These operational leaders must be able to see the big picture and at the same time focus on all the details, the processes, the people, to enable the business to execute effectively. It's all about execution, head down execution. Most organizations in this phase remain pretty much a functional designed organization because their functions have to get their job done and really just pay attention to execution. So in many ways, this operational leader needs to keep their team and their organization grounded, calm, in all the chaos and all the stress of this exponential growth, okay? Keeping a focus on all the internal and the external systems, processes, partnerships that need to be put in place quickly to enable a successful tornado phase, okay? As the tornado phase then begins to slow and volume becomes more steady state, the leadership then focus begins to shift to Main Street. Okay, market share, revenue, and time to market slowly shifts to all about customer satisfaction, cost control, increasing margins, okay? Strong, skilled leadership into this phase is really important, okay? They often, again, focus more around analytics and data, which becomes really important, particularly to the customer experience, to gain clarity on what business they're in at this point in time. As I mentioned before with the inkjet example, that product division became less important in building printers. It really became truly a razor blade business. All the margin was in the ink, while for the printer side, they were happy just to break even. And actually, they would have happily gave away printers just to ensure that steady growth and income that came from the ink. So when you become a 900-pound gorilla, many competitors start to come after you, both on the printer and the ink side. So making sure customers love and remain loyal to your products and your service becomes job one when you're on Main Street, okay? As the competition heats up and the leadership dialogue then also shifts to what's next. How do we maintain that status, that being that 900-pound gorilla on the next curve, okay? This requires leadership team to begin to structure itself more to be ambidextrous. This is really kind of critical. You got to maintain that focus on Main Street at the same time you're potentially cannibalizing, your current business and creating something new, okay? So as the existing business matures and slowly enters end-of-life phase, successful leaders will consciously seek that new S-curve and invest in the next great thing, okay? Promoting risk-taking, protecting a new group or an organization to explore and develop that new innovation and breakthrough. Unfortunately, for many organizations, the leadership tries to develop that new technology or innovation within its existing organization, and it fails as a result because the existing mature operation, it's like a giant flywheel that's humming along, working great, and it tends to dominate and suffocates that new innovation. It doesn't allow it to break rules. It forces it to to use its procurement system or to use its supply chain when it may not even require that. It requires something different. So that's a critical phase that happens at this juncture. So I'm going to stop here and just hopefully that these two dimensions give you a good sense of the shifts that occur across those life cycles. But appreciating the full 10 dimensions makes this a really useful diagnostic and planning tool for leadership. They can really step back, take a look. Let's say that if you're going from the bowling alley to the tornado phase, you can really look at the various aspects of these dimensions, understand the criteria of what's going on in those things, see where you're lagging, where the pain points and the classic missteps show up, and make those adjustments so that you can accelerate yourself into that next phase. That's what really becomes pretty valuable about this tool. So with that, I'm going to turn my attention to the common pain points and classic missteps across the life cycle.